Hey everyone, it's good to see you back. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most electrifying builds for Destiny 2 using Raiden Flux and the legendary Thunderlord. There was quite a bit of hype around Raiden Flux a few months back because of the roaming super buff, and it got me asking, which roaming super have you used as of recently? Be sure to comment below, as today's build is near unstoppable with how beefed up Raiden Flux and Thunderlord is together. Whether you're clearing out ads or taking on bosses, this build is gonna shock the competition by a lot. So let's make a start. Let's start with the exotic armor, Raiden Flux. With this exotic effect, Synapsis Junction, it states, quick successive attacks with Arc Staff increase damage output and duration. This exotic has been around since the dawn of Destiny 2 and has always been a reliable and faithful exotic to use. However, because it's tied into the Arc Staff and how Arc Staff kind of got left behind over time, not many people use the exotic and super since there were better stuff to use. As of now, this is still kind of the case as hunters have a much stronger roaming super to rely on, but with the recent buffs towards them, they are a lot more impactful when brought out. The main positive of this super is how fast you can naturally get your super back up and running after the first time use. This here allows players to chain their supers much faster when playing in packed out arenas, and on top of that, the amount of orbs being produced will allow any sort of charge with light byproduct to continue functioning well after the super has ended, which in our case benefits everyone. It's even viable in Endgame now, as the damage and duration provided is more noticeable when going on a longer spree, so everything does pay off. Our second exotic is the Thunderlord with his exotic effect, Rain Havoc, which states, final blows with the weapon generate stunning lightning strikes from above, strong against overload champions. Pairing Thunderlord with Raiden Flux is probably the best choice to run with because how both get stronger the longer they are out. For me, this plays well into the theme of the build as we can garner and get our super energy back up faster through tough enemies kills, while also making as much orbs and iron traces as we go along. It will be important you pair this up with the Trace Evidence, Retinal Burn, and Arc Compounder mod, since all these are easy to activate with an arc weapon alone, and what they provide easily allows us to take this into endgame content if we choose to. For aspects and fragments we have the following: Flow State, where defeating a Joel target makes you amplified, a Tempest Strike, where while sliding and using your melee, you release a devastating uppercut attack that damages and jolts anyone caught by it, a Spark of Discharge, where arc weapon thunder blows have a chance to create armor traces, Spark of Recharge, where while critically wounded, your melee, grenades, and class ability get rapidly recharged, a Spark of Shock, where your arc grenades jolt targets, and Spark of Ions, where defeating jolt targets create ion traces. To maximize our exotics in use, I decided to follow the basic route of making as much ion traces as possible, while also relying on arc seasonal mods to apply debuffs and weaken effect. Having Spark of Recharge and Discharge is easily the most wanted item to use, since both will grant us ability energy back fast, while also leaning into feeding back the other fragments and mods we have on hand. Things like Spark and Ions will both benefit from Recharge effect, since it will give us a 400% ability buff for all 3 abilities we use. However, this also has another feature we are relying on, and that is the Elemental Charge mod. This mod here will allow us to stay always charged with light in the build. Outside of Arc Surge mod being used, it will mean the Retinal Burn mod, which blind targets with any weapon, will stay active. It then means Trace Evidence will give us iron traces on top of the Spark of Discharge for more ability energy, which all leads into Arc Compounding for that sweet weakening effect by everyone hit by us. Now combine that into Thunderlord, which will auto reload a powered weapon per position he is made, and you have made an infinite generating wheel of pure energy and destruction. Did I also say this will greatly increase how fast we get our super back as well? And that's what it's going to do. This here encourages players to get up and use their arc weapons fully, from weapons, fragments, and super more, and you really have nothing to lose, honestly. For the mods and stats, we have both Resilience and Discipline marked with the highest priorities for the build. Resilience we have added at tier 10 for a 30% damage reduction. We have added the Solar Resistance mod for the 15% damage reduction against solar attacks. I will also include the Wind Chill mod for the use of my Tenacious Mastery sidearm for that extra damage reduction in the process. I would say this is helpful since we don't have ways to recover our health fast, so we may as well make ourselves tanky instead. Discipline, we have ours at tier 10 for a 1 minute 1 second cooldown via pulse grenades. As pulse is the better grenade to select for higher damage duration, the following will aid us with getting iron traces galore. With how fast we can get abilities back through subclass traits alone, This 1 minute 1 second cooldown is not much to worry about. In fact, encourage us to use our grenades more heavily. I would advise adding the Assets to Assets mod because of this, and also because it leans into getting our super back fast as well. Now when it comes down to additional mods though, this is what I would recommend for buffing our other key stats as well. Impact Induction times 1 for a 12% grenade buff, Momentum Transfer times 1 for a 12% melee buff, Bolstering Detonation for a 12% class ability buff, and Distribution for an additional 4% all ability buff. Bomber and Outreach are also optional if you have the space to add them. Now for the additional mods, we then have the following: Harmonic Siphon for creating auto power via matching elemental weapon types, Heavy Ammo Finder, Reserve and Scavenger mods for a heavy weapon, Charged Up times 1 for increasing the maximum stack of armor charges by +1, Arc Surge times 1 for a 10% arc weapon buff, and Time Dilation where armor charge decay rate is reduced. As we have covered our exotic heavy weapon, I would then advise you to pick some super weapons for the build. What I recommend are all optional, so please keep this in mind. Our primary will be the Tarnished Metal with Volt Shot and 4th Time to Charm. Ideally, you want to have a weapon that also has Volt Shot, as you need to net multiple kills for the fastest super generation. Now how you pick a weapon is entirely up to you, as you can go with an exotic prime weapon like Bad Juju instead, and then have an arc secondary weapon of your choice. This way, you can get your super up fast while also making full use of the seasonal mods we have in play, but this is what I would do instead if I did not have the following in hand. Our secondary is the Tenacious Mastery with Chill Clip and Reverberation. Ideal and good to bring with you into GMs, the following is handy when paired with Wind Chill for the Frost Armor effect, as I have not added the Spark Protection to the build this time round, so we can use this to apply extra damage reduction before engaging fights, which is perfect for enhancing our super usage for a tad bit longer. So with the roaming super buff and proving a wide number of left behind supers from days old, it's actually great to see once again things like Raiden Flux be used by players of all types. While Raiden itself is pretty good from the get-go with the Arc Staff, there was never really a time or place to use the exotic in the higher endgame content whatsoever, as it lacks a passive trait. It gets overlooked for exotics that offer a passive and final product that players find more worth investing in. However, now with the buff, it can actually be more usable to a larger degree with the right setup. I focused my kit around creating as much auto power for me and my allies, so we can easily juggle supers and also clear tougher content faster. For this, you do not need a lot to achieve this, but simply having an arc weapon with Volt Shot and using a Thunderlord is the best way for us to get our super up and running. On top of that, this will lean into the seasonal mods being used, such as Trace Evidence, giving us more ability energy from arc kills, a Retinal Burn, which will blind targets, and an arc compounding for that debuff on enemies. This here is going to make Raiden Flux feel more at home when building up his damage over time, knowing for the fact that once this is all over, you can easily replenish all your abilities and such from there. Although its lack of passive is not available, I can see this easily being used by players for even dungeon runs, and with how well curated it is, think about this. The second encounter for Ghost of the Deep can be quite hectic with groups of players and solo players, but with the ability to apply a 25% debuff on a boss and get a 72.8% super buff at ×3 kill, increased duration and faster super generation, it's actually becoming a lot more feasible for most newer players to run such content with comfort. Overall, the build is fitting for this season's mods, and the buff once you get the hang of it. As long as you use your super in the right environments, you'll only need to worry about recovering your health in the thickest of fights, which is, well, something you deal with down the road. So that will conclude today's build breakdown. If you have any thoughts on the content shared, then please leave a comment below. Or if you enjoy the content and want more of these videos, then leave a like and a sub while you're here. Dim link for the build located below in the pinned section, and I do advise you to check out my other playlists for more. It was great sharing today's video with you all, and I hope to see you again soon.